Hello and welcome to Lancaster Connects, the show about small business and small charity success in Lancaster County. My name is Ben. I am coming to you from our business, Gardner's Mattress and More, right here in beautiful Lancaster County. You can see maybe a little bit of sunshine poking through the windows. It was kind of a dreary morning. Maybe we need the rain. I think when you've reached the age that I've reached, you have to say, boy, we needed that rain. A little bit of rain this morning, but now the sun's peeking through. So looking forward to a nice afternoon, maybe a date night dinner with my wife tonight because the kids are out of town. So got a lot of great things coming on in this episode. We've got a great guest. I'll introduce them in about maybe 7 or 8 minutes or so. This is a show, like I said, about small business and small charity success. The David versus Goliath, if you will, battle on Main Street, basically delivering you everything that makes Lancaster so great. I'd love to hear from you during the show. Like producer Chris puts on the screen there, smash the love button, hit that heart button. Also give us a comment. I see superfan Takesha already said, hey, what's up? Hey guys, there she is. If you'd like to get in on the comment action, go ahead and do that. Yes, hooray for date nights. Thank you, Takesha. We give away prizes on the show. Got a couple of nice little gifts here. Hydro flask and a large coffee tumbler outfitted with the Less Snore, More Cuddle patented message here. Less Snore, More Cuddle. I'll mention that later on in the show when I do our testimonial. It's a product concept that we trademarked this Less Snore, More Cuddle name for, and it's really the solution. Less Snore, More Cuddle beds are the solution for couples who have trouble sleeping, and for various reasons: snoring, back pain, restless leg, circulation trouble, whatever. Less Snore, More Cuddle beds, help be the solution there. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But to win one of these prizes or a $25 restaurant gift card, all you got to do is put your name in the chat, or not put your name in the chat, put something in the chat, say hello, tell us what you like about the show, give our guest, our great guest coming up here, a question, ask a question. Any of those actions will enter you into a contest. At the end of the show, we'll spin the prize later, and we'll give away one of these great gifts. All you got to do is come in and tell us you were a winner, and you can get your prize redeemed here. You can watch this show various places. Obviously, Facebook. We're on the Lancaster Connects, streaming live on Lancaster Connects Facebook page and the Gardner's Mattress and More Facebook pages. We're also on YouTube, Lancaster Connects. Just search up Lancaster Connects in YouTube, and also the Gardner's Mattress and More YouTube page. And we're also on LinkedIn and a few other places. You can catch past episodes if you'd like to. I think we're on episode 59 or 60 right now. If you want to catch past episodes, a lot of great guests, a lot of great small businesses and small charities in Lancaster County that we've highlighted over the last year and a half, coming up on 2 years anniversary that we've been doing this show. You can go to lancasterconnects.com/episodes. Producer Chris has got it on the screen there. And of course, if you'd like to be a guest, if you're listening and you're a small business or a small charity, or you're a person in the county that's making a difference in the Lancaster community, and you have a story to share, we'd love to share your story. It doesn't cost you anything to be a guest on Lancaster Connects. All we ask is that you fill out a little form. Go to lancasterconnects.com/guest. Fill out the entry form there and let us know who you are, the business you represent or charity you represent, and what you'd like to talk about, what's meaningful, and we will have you on the show. Right now, we're booked into September, which is great. We've got a lot of great guests coming up. In fact, next week, the guests we were supposed to have on last week, I'll talk about what happened last week, but they are going to be on next week. So they're going to be on the 22nd, I believe, and that's the Pet Pantry of Lancaster County, doing some great things for our county pet friends. So great guest there. So last week, if you're a super fan or you tried to tune in at 2:00 on Monday last week, there was no show. So this is cool. Pops here, Jim McClure, that's my father. My kids are watching. I think this is a first. Normally the kids are in school or they're in summer camp or something. So my daughter Amelia and my son Julian, they must be watching because they're at my parents' house. I mentioned the kids are not home, and there's maybe a date night tonight. So kids, I'm sorry. We'll go out to eat another time, but this is a mom and dad date night dinner time. But kids are watching, so thanks for there we go, a little bit of confetti. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Love you and miss you. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon after you're home. If you'd like to comment throughout the show, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do that. So it's I think that's a first here is the kids are watching. You've watched one time more than your mother has watched, I think. That's always a joke. Anyway, so last week there was no show. I was ill. Came down with I contracted the COVID, and it was not fun. It was not fun. I was in bed for a few days. Not overly sick or anything like that, but the normal like body aches and a little bit of a fever and a little bit of a sore throat, and it was not fun. It was not pleasant. I'm feeling much better now, and I'm glad that the people I was around didn't get prior to it didn't get sick. So it's not fun. I'm I guess thankful to have gone through it to now know what to expect going forward. But in fact, while I'm talking about it, I'll mention part of my sleep tip. My sleep tip I'll do now. It related to COVID and related to, of course, sleep. When the body tells you need to sleep, just sleep. So that's all I wanted to do for 3 days. I had my laptop next to me, stayed in contact with the store here, and great team. They handled things without really my input, but I pay attention to the email and stuff like that. So I probably did a few days of incoherent work early last week, and just slept, and the body told me to sleep, and I slept. So that's the Sleep Better tip for this week. It's not specifically in the Sleep Better book. There's a lot of other great helpful sleep tips in here. You can get that at gardenersmattressandmore.com/sleep-better. You can request a free copy of the Sleep Better book and we'll mail it to you. But that is my Sleep Better tip for this week. If the body tells you to sleep, if you're sick or your body needs sleep, just honor your body and sleep. And that's what I did. Also, I am solo. Jeff last week started an anniversary vacation, much deserved. Happy anniversary to Jeff and Stephanie. 20 years, I think. 20 years. So congrats to them. So they were away last week. This week, Jeff, his grandfather passed away over the weekend. So he is on his way up to Canada for some services today and tomorrow for his grandfather. Just wanted to take a moment and say a couple things about Jeff's grandfather. I've never met his grandfather, but I feel like I know him based on what Jeff has talked, how Jeff has talked about him, just how much Jeff, he meant in Jeff's life. He was a master woodworker. In fact, one of his specialties in retirement was making wood bowls out of unique wood items, or old logs, cut down, make them flat and turn them into bowls. Recently, Jeff gave me a bowl that his grandfather made that I should have brought it in. But it's really cool. It looks almost like an elephant. And there's two wood bowls carved into this piece of wood. And, he didn't do anything to this piece of wood to make it look like an elephant. Obviously he he sanded it down and carved these bowls into it, but it's really a neat serving dish. And it just shows the craftsmanship and attention to detail that his grandfather had. His grandfather was a man of faith, and I know meant a lot to Jeff. So our thoughts and prayers are with Jeff and all the family up there in Canada. So he'll be up there for the next handful of days, but we'll be back together next Monday. So, without further ado, we will bring on our guest. We've got a great guest today, Mr. James DeBord from the Schreiber Center for Pediatric Development. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
All right. Well, James, it's great to have you on. We'll get into what Schreiber Pediatrics does. But first, let's talk about you. Are you a Lancaster native?
I am, yes. Born and raised.
Okay. All right. And what part of Lancaster County were you born and raised?
In the city. I was a city kid. I was born, my family lived on Pearl Street in the city when I was born in 1968. And I grew up, spent my high school years just on the other side of the line in Lancaster Township on South President Avenue.
Okay,
Proud graduate of McCaskey High School, and
awesome.
Then going away to college and graduate school and living in the Philadelphia area for a few years. I've been here most of my life.
That's awesome. So Pearl Street, that's on the west end of Lancaster City, correct?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yep. I for a few years, almost 20 years ago, I lived on 3rd Street in Lancaster, which connects, I believe, to Pearl Street. So we would walk to the Blue Star, the historic Blue Star, which
great place.
hasn't been around for a long time, and it was a great place. Back in the day, I was in a band in college, and we like our home that we'd play at felt like the Blue Star. We'd play at the Blue Star often, and then when I lived in Lancaster, we could just kind of walk. And I remember walking on Pearl Street down to Columbia Avenue there, 462, and walk into the Blue Star. So it's kind of a shame that sort of place doesn't exist anymore. But
luckily, there's lots of other great places in Lancaster for sure.
Well, that's true, and we might even talk about one or two later on in the show.
Absolutely, I hope.
All right, so you're here to talk about Schreiber Center for Pediatric Development. Tell us what Schreiber Pediatric is.
So Schreiber is actually incredibly unique in that we are the only outpatient provider of pediatric therapy services for children. The true range of pediatrics is birth to age 21 when they age out. So for 20 years of life, in many cases, we see children from the time they're born until, obviously, as I said, they age out. They come here for therapy services for a myriad of diagnoses. We see children that are born with congenital disabilities, such as cerebral palsy, spina bifida, Down syndrome, muscular dystrophy, very rare disorders. We see many kids who are one of, in some cases, less than 100 children known to have a particular diagnosis worldwide.
Oh, wow.
We treat 4,000 of those children really from all across the central Pennsylvania community. We really cover probably last count about 11 different counties that the children come from, because these services are so rare. So we see those children. And another thing that I always like to emphasize, we also see children who were born as kind of the clinical term is typically developing children. And one day as the result of an accident or a rare infection that came as a result of, it started as the flu or some other complication. We see children that have been in accidents. Unfortunately, we see children that are victims of child abuse. We treat children who have been victims of gunshot wounds.
Oh, wow.
Everything comes through our doors here, and our responsibility is to help these children become the best people that they can be, to live as independent and best life that they possibly can.
Right. So in that specific scenario, after they've gone through their treatments to get better, then you take over for the therapy part of it. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that really, for many of the children, it's a lifelong. So a child born with cerebral palsy, they may have many surgeries throughout their lifetime, and they go really, not just here in this region, but all over the country. We have many parents, like any parents, we, all want the best for our children. So we see children who may see doctors in California or Texas or Minnesota, but they're from here in the central Pennsylvania region, and they come back home. So that doctor writes a script for the specific therapy that they want, or they're also in an ongoing, therapy basis, as I said, kind of from the time they're born until they age out here. But yes, we see children for a myriad of reasons. And while they're getting their medical care, the surgeries, all the other treatments elsewhere from their physicians and healthcare providers, their therapy services are all done here at Schreiber.
Wow. Schreiber has a pretty unique origin story. In fact, I think Schreiber you're a nonprofit organization, is that?
Yes, I'm made aware of that all too often. We are very much a
Okay.
nonprofit operation. I can tell you a little bit about that as well.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Schreiber, I believe, may be the oldest nonprofit organization that we've had as a guest.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, it's been around a long time, established by an amazing woman, has an incredible reputation. I tell people all the time, I work with some of the best people you could ever hope to, in your life. The therapists here are truly miracle workers. We've been around for 86 years, and in those 86 years,
Wow.
literally, you could fill stadiums with the numbers of children whose families were told your child will never walk, never speak, never hold your hand. And they do. And not only did they as a child, but now they're adults who are out in our community as productive members of the community or out in the greater world around us doing amazing things in many cases.
That's awesome. It's neat to scroll through the timeline there, and I see a handful of things on there that we will talk about, including those little yellow rubber guys there. We'll talk about them at the end.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about some of the services that you provide. So you went through a myriad of things. So from like an occupational therapy standpoint, talk a little bit about the services offered there.
So in terms of specifically on occupational therapy, we'll see children, again, with a myriad of diagnoses. So we may see a child who is born with a developmental delay where they're not starting to crawl. And it may not have been diagnosed at birth. They may have a mild form, again, of whether it's cerebral palsy or another particular reason. So the therapist will begin working oftentimes in the home early on with that child once they're diagnosed, or we also offer childcare and preschool. So some of those same children come to those programs here at the center. Our therapists who do early intervention work will see those children wherever they may be in the childcare program where they're located elsewhere or in a preschool program elsewhere. But I think probably the best way to describe it, getting outside of kind of the clinical world, as I like to say, we had a little girl here a few years ago. This was actually featured in a local press story a few years back. She was born, she had suffered a stroke in utero. So she had a stroke before she was born.
Oh, wow.
And for the first 7 years of her life, she had a left arm that basically, again, there's many technical things you could get into, but her left arm hung limp. She couldn't utilize it. And obviously, think about anything in life. If you have only one arm, the limitations to do so many things that those of us who have two arms are able to utilize two arms are able to do that she couldn't. So she came here, and one of our therapists at the time, this now, of course, is being used more widely, but there was a new type of therapy called constraint mobility therapy where they took her good arm, which in her case was her right arm, and they casted it. We do serial casting here for various purposes. So they took that right arm out of, operation essentially to force her to work with the left arm. So the occupational therapist would see her, and it was over the course of a summer for a couple hours, 4 or 5 days a week. So think about this, a 7-year-old, and how good a therapist has to be to keep that child focused, working with that child. And over the period of summer, after 7 years of a left arm hung limp, her favorite activity was to hop in one of the ball pits that we have here at the center. And she could, after all those weeks, lie flat on her back on the floor, reach up and grab a rope strictly with her left arm, herself from the floor, and dive into that ball pit because she wanted to work towards the goal of achieving that. And now they take the cast off her right arm, and both of her arms work perfectly fine. She's able to dress herself, cut her own food, tie her own shoes, reach and hug her mom and dad with both arms. Again, it completely transformed her life and what she'll be able to do for the rest of her life.
That's an amazing story. From 7 years
of a lot of amazing stories. I tell it's by far the best work. People here, again, the therapists we have are world class. I just get the privilege of telling the stories that they make
There you go. Since you mentioned your staff, what does your staff look like? How many therapists do you have on staff? And are you also do you employ volunteers, that sort of thing?
Sure. So we have about 80 members of our staff. The vast
Oh,
majority
wow.
of them are either therapists or educators. Again,
Okay.
they're spread across the departments I talked about, again earlier, the physical therapy, occupational therapy, which we were just talking about, speech therapy, and also behavioral health therapy, which is something we started only 2 years ago. In addition, because of our preschool and childcare, we also, as I said, employ educators, early intervention specialists who work with the children. So it's a very busy place, to say the
Hmm.
least. When I got here 10 years ago, we were very short staffed because of financial constraints, and the
Sure.
focus that I've really concentrated on over these last 10 years is to change our financial picture so that we could hire the staff to reduce. We once had wait lists. When I got here in the fall of 2012,
Uh,
a parent called in and their child was diagnosed with a speech developmental delay. They were told that they were put on a list that at that time was 2 years long
mm,
to get the evaluation to start services. That's going to be too late. It was too late, unfortunately, for a lot of children.
yeah.
We worked very diligently to change that by hiring more staff. And you ask about volunteers, this place would not be what it is without volunteers. We need
Mm,
volunteers. In fact, for a couple of years during really the height of COVID, and we were very, very stringent in our policies around COVID because we see so many medically compromised children.
sure.
Uh,
Sure.
you
Have to be. Yep.
Absolutely. You would see a 4-year-old here who, again, kind of referencing what we were talking about earlier, who has cerebral palsy, but now at age 4, they've also been diagnosed with leukemia, a neuroblastoma.
Mm,
And that child who's coming from their care to get their chemo radiation to come here to go to PT to keep up the strength of their legs so that they can walk and avoid getting blood clots as a result from the treatments they're receiving for cancer. We obviously had to maintain the most strict of protocol.
yeah.
We're easing some of that, and we're able to return volunteers here to the building. There's many projects on the grounds outside, and of course, as we're going to talk about later, we also have our special events where we
Yeah.
always need an army of volunteers to help us as well.
That. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any nonprofit or charitable organization, we talk about it all the time. There's always a call for more arms, more bodies to help.
Absolutely.
Um, and obviously we can encourage financial gifts and donations, but the reality is not everybody is able to help maybe in that way, but everybody's got a little bit of time that they can carve out of their schedule to make it an impact with a local nonprofit or charitable organization.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so a question, what's the difference between occupational therapy and physical therapy? You also do physical therapy there, Schreiber.
Yeah, absolutely. So physical therapy oftentimes is more concentrated and focused on sort of the gross motor skills. So the ability to walk and be able to
Okay.
walk with a gait referring to the strides that individuals take. Oftentimes, again, children who have a diagnosis that causes difficulty with walking or who are learning to walk, um, they concentrate on focusing on that gross motor skill of being able to really take those steps in proper direction. I think the easiest way to think about occupational therapy gets a little more focused on really the activities of daily life, or we call them activities of daily living,
Okay.
where
Yeah.
in this day and age, for a child to be able to go into the classroom, if they have the ability through the therapy to be able to utilize their hands to be able to touch keys
Yep.
on a keyboard for a laptop, or even obviously be able to direct their finger if they're using an iPad. So there's
Right.
more concentration on some of those specific skills within OT. There's also some other things. So while the muscle strengthening is a big part of the PT work, OT also gets into some areas like sensory. We see a lot of children on the autism spectrum
Okay.
who have sensory processing disorder. So, for example, the child who is mildly, or even an adult who's mildly bothered by a tag in a new shirt or sweatshirt or sweater.
Right.
We have children who can't stand the feel of clothing on their skin.
Sure.
So
Sure.
imagine
Right.
the difficulty for that parent to be able to, again, get that child up in the morning, get them dressed, and be able to put them in an environment to go to school or even play with their friends, if the difficulty isn't just being able to put clothes on them,
Yeah.
or the shape or the color of a food that they might see, where an OT will work in partnership with a speech pathologist to overcome issues that have nothing to do with smell or taste. It's strictly, I don't like how that food looks.
Right.
And again, historically, things that some people might have thought, well, that child is just, misbehaving, as someone might have said
Sure.
years ago. But there are children whose brains are wired in a way that triangles, if a food is shaped as triangle, if a food is, yellow or a color that their brain can't handle, the therapists have to work with them to be able to overcome. And that a lot of that is done in occupation.
Right. Right. So one that I thought was interesting is speech language therapy. I know a lot of times speech and challenges related to speech are handled within a school
Mhm.
environment. They have great speech therapists that work at schools,
Sure.
but it's a big part of the service you offer at Schreiber as well, right?
Oh, it's huge because, well, people should understand. So here is why we're such a rarity, right? So we're a true unicorn amongst healthcare providers.
Hmm.
The thought for a lot of these services is that they're provided in the schools. The problem is, however, in reality, and you can ask any parent who has a child who often is waiting to get services in schools. I
Oh,
occasionally interact with therapists, speech pathologists, as you just mentioned, from a school district. And you'll have speech pathologists who have 125 kids on their caseload. Now, in the course of a normal school day, in the course of any 1 week, how many times do you think an individual child is being seen if a
right.
speech pathologist has 125 children on their caseload? So Schreiber is here as the only other entity that many parents can turn to when they feel like my child isn't getting enough in terms of the service, or the services in school alone aren't anywhere near enough for what I want my child to be able to do and accomplish, beyond some
Yeah,
rudimentary tasks. We have a
that
parent
makes sense.
who often tells the story at some of our events that when his child was diagnosed with CP, the therapist, and again, all the therapists in the school systems are working so hard, and they're wonderful people doing wonderful work, but they're also limited, again, in the time that they have the children to interact with.
Right.
Uh, and this parent tells the story how when they met with the therapist in school, they said, well, we're going to be able to work with your child so that he'll be able to hold a tray in the cafeteria and put food on it, and if needed, be able to go up or down a flight of steps. And as this gentleman and his wife, who actually is a school teacher herself, said in response, and meaning, that's some kind of 19th century sort of mindset of a very rudimentary, basic
Sure.
way to adapt to live in society. And obviously, in the world we live in now is well beyond that. And by the way, this is, talking about, we see kids here who their minds are perfectly fine. There's often a misconception that
Right.
children, because they have a diagnosis, somehow there's a cognitive aspect in every case. Absolutely not. We see kids who are brilliant, who test off the charts academically, but their physical diagnosis is what
Hmm.
is preventing them from living a more full life. And we want to get those kids out into the world to be, the engineers, the scientists,
Yeah.
the IT experts of tomorrow.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, kind of on the school subject, I know you have childcare services and a preschool there as well.
Yes, absolutely, we do. And our programs, by the way, too, another, as I get the opportunity to tell more about Schreiber, our inclusional, reverse mainstream people have different, terms that they use, but not every child that comes to us for either preschool or daycare has a diagnosis. There are scores of typically developed. In fact, many of the, for example, the IU, the intermediate unit, they refer many children to us for
Hmm.
our program, because they want those children to see, after family, the number one determinant oftentimes on outcome in anything for a child in terms of their developmental stages is peer group. So
Mhm.
they want the children to see typically developing kids and how they move, or their ability to walk with the gait that they can mimic, or their hand movements, or whatever the tasks are.
Right.
So so Schreiber's open to any parent who is looking for quality childcare, who's looking for quality, preschool. We provide all of those services here at Schreiber.
That's awesome. How big is your child care or preschool? How many kids take advantage of that service?
Yeah, so each of the rooms, generally it's based on ratio by age. So we
Mm.
start children here for childcare as early as 6 weeks, which is the earliest that the state allows a center officially a license. We are a Keystone Stars 4 center. It's the highest rating the state gives to a childcare
Mm.
program.
Oh, well.
So it varies. So, some cases it's between kind of 18, 20 children is kind of ideal in the classroom. Again, based on staffing ratio and the requirements. Our preschool classes, again, very busy. We have morning, afternoon preschool, and we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday programs. And
Okay.
they're all full. And usually all the programs have waiting lists, but I encourage anyone who's interested, if you're expecting or making plans to be expecting, if you want your child to be here at Schreiber, please reach out. And I know you're putting our contact information up there, and you can find
Yeah.
more information on the website for sure as well, or just by calling Schreiber.
Yeah. So one thing we were remiss in talking about or mentioning is where is Schreiber? So you mentioned that we cover a wide area, but you have
Right.
one facility here, really in the center of Lancaster. Tell us where your building is.
We do. So we are located in East Hempfield Township, really just across the Conestoga River from Lancaster Township and Lancaster City, not too far away, of course, at the intersection, for those that are familiar with the area, of Marietta Avenue and Good Drive. Just
Yep.
beyond that, you'll see a large building, and we have a great big, colorful mural with children on the
Yeah.
side of the
Yep.
building. If you go up and down Good Drive, that people may have seen. And this time of year, we also have additional building nearby that we are leasing, because we
Oh.
are, busting at the seams here at the center right
Yeah.
now. I mentioned earlier about the need for more therapists to reduce the wait list. So we've hired those therapists. We've run out of room, so we've had to lease, unfortunately, very expensive nearby space, but it was necessary. And out in front of that building, you also will catch your attention this time of year. There's a giant inflatable duck sitting on the lawn of the nearby building, but that's located again also just across the street here off of Good Drive.
We'll talk about that duck.
Yeah, it plays a pretty big role in keeping this place going for sure.
Yep. So wrapping up on some of the services and programs you offer, I know you have some camps, probably summer camps, and also offer some other family support, like a respite program. Is that correct?
Right. Absolutely. So, one of the things that I love about Schreiber, amongst many, is that families, when they come here, they often, basically they fall in love with this place, with the therapist treating their children, and they want to stay connected. And again, while medically we are a pediatric only facility, and those children age out at 21, a lot of our rec programs give the opportunity for the children who are now young adults, as they age, to continue to be involved with Schreiber. So we run summer camps, and those camps, we break them down during the summer by age groups. So we'll have 7, 9-year-old children, we have teens, and then we'll have, again, years ago we had a program when I got here, and it was kind of a teen focused name, and then more and more we're recognizing that there were young people who had come to Schreiber, again, for their entire life to that point, who turned 21 and were now 25, 30, 32, and they wanted to be included. They wanted to be able to do the things that the camp programs do, and take them to Dutch Wonderland for the day, go to a baseball game, do arts and crafts, talent shows, play basketball. So we provide those programs, and then the respite program is also a wonderful program where the families, once a month usually is what we're able to provide, because of obviously financial resources being really the limit there. We have a program where families can drop their children off on a Friday evening. Usually we start around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and it runs till 9 o'clock. And many parents who have that child who, again, has a more severe diagnosis in particular, and they have medical complications related to the diagnosis. We have a nurse here on staff who stays during the period of time while the respite program is running. They can come here, and again, their children, we have, they watch a movie, they, usually kind of are involved with a hands-on fun food snack item, or we do a Sunday bar that the staff and volunteers, help with the kids, which is always a great mess. The kids love is
Sure.
a wonderful thing. But what's really neat about that too is that the service is really intended for the children to enjoy. But I
Yep.
can't tell you how many parents come to us and they'll hug a staff member, or they'll write a note to me, or that evening say something
Right.
about, this is the first time they've been out in 10 years.
Yep.
And in terms of enjoying an evening, because so often, again, their focus has to be on their child and the responsibilities they maintain there. And
Yep.
oftentimes, if they're limited in their ability to get nursing care or other support, because those programs are limited. The government provides a lot of great programs, but like everything else, there are limited resources, and parents
Sure.
struggle to find aids and assistance that can stay with children so that they can, do the things they need to do in their lives. And Schreiber steps in to help do that.
That's awesome. There's obviously, for parents, there's a struggle just to find the right care and the right facility and get
Right.
get the help that their child needs. But then there's just I can imagine an overwhelming physical and mental, emotional toll taken on that parent, and to be able to take advantage of that respite service, I'm sure is, like you said, it's kind of
Right.
a godsend for them.
Right. Oh, it is. I can tell you, another parent years ago, she read a poem one time at an event that we were having described about what it meant to be the parent of a child who has special needs.
Wow.
Particularly, and it really focused on the parents who have children that are born with congenital disabilities. And basically, the gist of the poem was that if your life, or much of your life, you had spent packing and preparing to take your first trip to go to Italy, and when you landed and stepped off the plane, you found out, I think the title of the poem, if I recall, was Holland, and you landed in Holland, everything that you thought was going to be is now
Hmm.
completely different than what you were expecting. And
Yep.
nothing different in the love that you have for that child, but in terms
Yep.
of the expectations, or how you thought imagined things might go, oftentimes are different. So Schreiber is, again, not only here to help the children, but
Yep.
we're here to serve those thousands of families who depend on us to help their children, to make their collective lives the best that they can be, and help them to live out their collective dreams, really.
Yep. So that's fantastic. What is the process for a parent who's in need of the services at Schreiber? What is the process to become a patient at Schreiber? Is it all referrals from family doctors and schools and whatnot, or how does that work?
That's pretty much right. You hit the nail on the head. So a doctor will either, again, if a child's born with a congenital disability and it's diagnosed at birth, the family, just like you would for anything else, in terms of a healthcare need, the doctor writes a script, and that script comes to Schreiber,
Okay.
and the therapist will conduct an initial evaluation of the child to determine, how often they think the child needs to come. They'll look and set a goal plan for what they're looking to achieve for that child. And again, those are coming either from physicians, or obviously, as you just mentioned, oftentimes, whether, for example, hearing and speech, audiologists, speech pathologists periodically, who go into preschool programs, childcare programs, and assess children. Because, particularly with speech, where that isn't going to be diagnosed at birth, because obviously a child's
Right.
not speaking when they're born.
Right.
But as they begin to, oftentimes too, a parent may not even notice certain things that, again, a trained professional is going to, and then there'll be the referral to come to Schreiber based on that. But again, the vast majority, far and away, of the referrals come to us directly from physicians.
And then the services, how are they paid for by the parents? Do you work with insurances? Are there programs that might be fully covered or funded for parents? Talk about that a little bit.
So there are. So oftentimes, for all of the derision, or unfortunately sometimes out there that people speak about when they think about government programs, I want to say
Sure.
that the program that covers children with disabilities is a wonderful program for the families, in that it is designed, the care that most of these children need throughout their lifetime would be catastrophic for most families, in the sense of the
Absolutely.
If you know anyone who goes through a major medical event in their life and the catastrophic costs that are tied to that. So imagine having that throughout the course of your life, and particularly in your early life, in our case. So the government says they cover it. It's not means tested. This is where the big thing about why we always are out asking for support,
Sure.
because it's not means tested. And, the reality is nobody wants to get into parsing where that line is. So that child that's born with CP, who's on the autism spectrum, has sensory processing disorder, and now, as I mentioned earlier, at age 4 has cancer. Are you going to say to the family, because you make a 6-figure salary at X, 150,000 a year, that family also could be bankrupted by the constant cost
Yeah, absolutely.
of requirements and care for that child. So thankfully, again, the government steps in, covers the cost. Unfortunately, this is where the difficulty comes for us, and why we are that unicorn, in our world. It is paid for by Medicaid, reimbursed to the provider by Medicaid.
Okay.
And the government sets up what's called a Medicaid fee schedule, where every service that a family, oftentimes people hear Medicaid and they think of people who are in poverty. Medicaid also covers the programs. Pennsylvania, like I believe 35 other states, uses Medicaid to cover children with disabilities. The problem is the providers, we lose $70 for every hour of service we provide.
Wow.
Operating not as a typical large health system nonprofit. People hear nonprofits, and they're often, rightfully so, incredulous about what that means for a large healthcare system or hospital. We're a true nonprofit who, every time that child comes, an hour of service, we are losing $70.
Wow.
And, without the events, again, that we're going to get into and talk about, and charitable support and online giving that comes to Schreiber, we wouldn't be here. And it's why we're the only entity, because no other healthcare system in this region provides dedicated outpatient pediatric therapy. They'll help and provide therapy for children who stay in the hospital. That child that has surgeries, and maybe they're in the hospital for a week or 2 weeks, and they begin getting therapy while they're at the hospital. That child's discharged. They're no longer seen in most cases by that facility. They come here to Schreiber. And while we do see some families that have limited private insurance, so let's say the family has a really good Cadillac plan, and just like any of us, we injure our back or our leg and we go to a physical therapist, we're entitled to so many visits in a year.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, what happens with that child who has multiple diagnoses, they come one every week, maybe 2 or 3, 4 times a week, and for more than one therapy. Sometimes it's 2, 3, 4 therapies. They have exhausted their private insurance by the end of January. It's on a calendar.
Oh man.
Now for the next 11 months of the year, they roll over to be covered by Medicaid. So yes, we like if a family has that, but I will tell you, sadly, it's in my opinion, it's less than, oh gosh, I don't want to say, but let's just say it's hard to stomach the fact that what we see more often, the insurance companies will say, they'll see a child's diagnosis and they'll say, look at this child is going to need these services long term. Deny their upfront private insurance at all. Don't use the private insurance, deny it, because then they'll immediately roll over onto Medicaid. And then at that point, Medicaid only is paying for them.
Gotcha.
Which really hurts us more so, because if it was 25 private visits, we would have gotten a private insurance rate during that period of time, which is it's literally a drop in a bucket for us, but it's something. But when they deny it and they go straight to Medicaid, it just continues that cycle of huge losses for us.
Yeah. And that's really tough. And obviously you want to offer your services to as many children as needed as possible, and not have that wait list and all of that. So how do you make up that difference, and how does the community help you with that?
Right. So, and you hit the nail on the head earlier as well, when you said volunteers are always needed here. I will tell you that time is as valuable as treasure, as far as we're concerned here at Schreiber, in that when we have people helping us who come and do everything from the exterior grounds work in a volunteer capacity, that's less money we have to pay to do things to keep the facility nice, or who help us with painting in the facility, or whatever might be done. But the biggest thing that we have to do all the time is raise money. I mentioned when I got here 10 years ago, financials were very difficult, and it wouldn't have mattered who was here in terms of, again, the therapists were doing their wonderful work, but Medicaid reimbursements weren't getting any better. So my plan was to really kind of move Schreiber to a level where we were focusing on much larger major gift programs, and getting a lot of major donors to start supporting Schreiber through foundations, individuals. But the other way, we also make money, and this is how we pay for all of our operating programs here. So pay the therapists, pay to keep the lights on and the air conditioning and the heat and all the things we need to do through our special events that we run during the course of the year. And we really need the community to help us with those special events.
So what are some of these events?
So
there's a big one.
Yeah. So I'll get to the big one, I guess, kind of for last. So we really, one of the things when I got here to Schreiber as well, we used to do a whole lot of special events. At one point, we were doing more than one a month in some cases. Wow. And it was really burning out the staff. It was burning out volunteers. They were going back to the same wells in many cases for sponsorship, support from area businesses. And I said, I'm going to focus my energy on the fundraising side on major gifts to try to find more, six-figure gifts, $100,000, $250,000 gifts from foundations to ease some of that burden so that we could curtail the number of special events and really make the group that we kept a group that really generated, substantial revenue. So in the course of the calendar year, our big events are our gala. That's a fun event for people that like to get dressed up and come out. And again, probably like a lot of galas people are familiar with for nonprofits. We have the auctions and all of that, which is fun. We also have a big softball tournament every spring for people that are softball players that have teams. We're always looking for more teams. What's great about that, that's always something that can be expanded. If we exceed the capacity of the fields where we're playing, we just add more fields in other locations for teams to play. So that's every spring. Usually it's the first weekend in June. People can, as I see they're showing, find more information about that on our website.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we do that. And probably though, amongst all of our events, the one that really sticks out in people's minds is the one that's taking place right now, which is our rubber ducky race. And I say taking place right now, meaning that we sell tickets. We have, really 25,000 ducks that are available to be purchased. And the way that works is people buy tickets and they're able to go online. You can go again to our site. And I see again, they're showing that. Thank you so much for that page. And people can go online and purchase their tickets. And what that does, obviously, first and foremost, by buying those tickets, they're helping Schreiber. But you're issued a set of tickets with numbers. If you do it online, you're welcome to buy them in person here at the center, either at our front desk, our financial development department. They also set up spots they'll have listed online where they're going to be throughout the county, here in Lancaster County at least, to sell periodically from July 1st up until the weekend of the actual ducky race, which this year is Sunday, September 11th. What it is, if you've never seen it, you can actually Google it or just look it up on YouTube. There's lots of videos over the years, including aerial drone footage of the duck race. And on that day, every ticket that's sold, a corresponding rubber duck, it's all organized by a group of staff and volunteers who are meticulous. A duck with the matching number to that ticket gets dropped into the Conestoga out of a humongous box with about the size of a small house. Float down the river, and we have scores of volunteers in the river who are waiting to catch them at the end, because that's a major job to pick all those ducks
I'm
up
sure.
and then put them back into barrels, and then later they're resorted. It's an unbelievably huge labor-intensive event for a lot of staff and volunteers. But anyway, the winner has a chance to win $10,000.
Wow.
And then there's a whole series of other really neat prizes, $500, multiple $500 gift cards. To places. But I'll be honest, a lot of times people will come in and say here, or they see we're selling ducks and they'll simply say, here's money for Schreiber. I don't need to win anything. Let somebody else buy the tickets. and they'll just give donations to the staff or the volunteers who are selling. But it's a cool thing to be a part of.
And do people come and watch the duck? What do you call it? Duck?
Yeah, the duck race. The
race.
rubber ducky race. Yes, absolutely. When they drop out of that box again, and you'll see this if you look the video up on YouTube, you'll see people along the banks of the Conestoga River. We do it at Lancaster County Central Park off the bridge. The main entrance bridge is where a crane hoists the box up, and then our ambassador children, who are the kids whose families allow us to share their stories with the public, usually one of them or all of them, if they're there, will count down, and the box opens, and this unbelievable sea of yellow hits the river, and it's just it's cool to watch.
And how far do they race?
It's about a quarter of a mile. It's not a very long distance, but what's neat is it's long enough that a lot of people love to see them drop, and then they'll race to the end to watch the spectacle.
And how long does it take a duck to go that quarter of a mile?
It depends on that's all. It's funny. I tell everybody I wear a few different hats here at Schreiber. And that time of year, I'm very interested in meteorology, because what we hope for is that the river is just at a pleasant flowing level at that point. We had years, unfortunately, when we couldn't do the ducky race, where we had to draw the tickets out of a bin. We just take the ticket stubs, throw them in bins like you would in any raffle, and spin them around, and then we let the ambassadors pick out the winners. But the race can't happen if the river's too low. So when we have droughts happening, there's not enough water flowing in the Conestoga, unfortunately, for the ducks to race. And we've also sadly have had years where we've had tropical storms come through right before the race, and the river is, the rangers that are in charge of the park make the determination whether or not the ducks can be dropped, and they'll say absolutely no one's getting in that river. The river's, on a day when it's up to your, there you go. So on a day when it's up to your knees, there'll be time C, so you can see. It's
so cool. And there they go.
There they go. And so when the river, that's probably a typical year there, where there's a nice flow. And it's a matter of a few minutes till the time where they make it to the finish line.
That's awesome. And that's roughly 25,000 ducks.
It is. So we technically have 20,000 yellow ducks, and then we have an additional 5,000 ducks. And we've been doing different things in different years. Some years we've done where we've sold a higher ticket price for those ducks are blue. But our focus is to sell all 20,000 of the yellow ducks for the race, because again, the way we make money is through sponsorships of the event. There's a huge turnout because we also have a festival. If I didn't make that clear, the day of the race, if I didn't mention that, the day of the race from 2 to 5 o'clock, there is a festival there at Lancaster County Central Park for Schreiber. So we have pony rides, and there's all kinds of food trucks, and there's a little kind of fun kid-sized midway with all kinds of games, and a lot of our supporting businesses will come out with their staff for the afternoon and set up and run the games, or service clubs that support us will do that. And so it's a fun place to come for the entire family. The kids have things to do. The parents, there's plenty of food to eat. And then at 5 o'clock, that's when we drop. So that's another way. The spectacle of seeing the ducks in itself is an event, but the people in many cases are there because they've come for the festival and stay to watch the race.
That's awesome. I mean, I've never been to the race, but I've always heard about the rubber.
We've got to get you there. You should come join us this year. It's going to be a great time to be back outside and enjoy everything.
Is that a Saturday? I think you said it the 11th, right?
It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. Okay.
It's always now the second Sunday. It used to be in July years ago.
Okay.
And actually, the event got so big that the Lancaster County commissioners, who are very supportive of Schreiber over the years, in my 10 years, had come to me and said, "Look, Schreiber, we don't charge you to use the park, and we're glad to do that. But in the middle of summer, it's so busy in the park that the crowds you're drawing for this event have gotten so big. Is there any chance you could move it to after Labor Day?" And it was really fortuitous in that I had a number of people when I got here, of all the issues and challenges. Several people said to me, "I never understood why an organization serving children many of whom were medically fragile, wanted to do an event at the height of summer.
Middle of summer.
But it might be 95
Yeah.
or 100 degrees outside in the middle of the day. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I think we'll starts getting a little nicer towards that middle of September where we're heading that second Sunday. So that's the date we now use every year.
Awesome. Well, I wish you a lot of luck with it.
Thank you.
Sunday the 11th, 2 to 5 o'clock, ducky drop at 5 o'clock. And there's still more ducks to be sold, right? Like we could
Absolutely.
go online and
there are lots of ducks to be sold. I think we actually got started a little behind the curve this year based on we were coming out of COVID, like a lot of organizations. And I think a lot of our volunteers and supporters and people were kind of wondering what's happening. And so I have to give, huge shout out to our financial development staff for really stepping up and going headlong into it to work to get the sales going, connecting with our volunteers, connecting with locations, supportive businesses all over the county who allow us to come set up at their facilities, either out front or in their lunch rooms for large facilities, factories, other employers, and sell ducks. So really, they've done a great job. I can't thank our volunteers who help sell the ducks enough, and all the places again who allow us to come there and sell. We really appreciate it. But people can go on the website and buy them online anytime they want.
That's great. So Jeff and I were going to be making some sort of donation to Schreiber, whether that's a purchase of ducks or some other sponsorship. I'll go on there and pick an opportunity there. But we definitely would like to support beyond having you as a guest on the show. We're almost at the top of the hour. I don't want to take up much more of your time, but we do have the connection cocktail. If you have a few more minutes for a few more questions.
Yeah, we'd be glad. Thank you.
All right. There's our little connection cocktail graphic. And if you hear some music in the background, we're testing some connection cocktail music. So
all right, great.
All right. So Lancaster native.
Yes.
What is your favorite thing to do in Lancaster?
Anywhere I get to go with my wife and our 3 children is my favorite thing to do in Lancaster.
Okay. All right. So and we mentioned restaurants, and this wasn't one of my questions that I highlighted here, but do you have a favorite restaurant to go to with your family?
Yeah. So probably, again, a little selfish in terms of my focus in the sense that why it's my favorite. It's not just because it's a great place. It is a great place. Yeah. But Judy Ross, who is the owner of Lancaster Dispensing Company, is an incredible supporter of Schreiber and all of our events. And if I have a choice to go anywhere, I always go to Dipco because of the fondness I have for Judy and all the support she's provided for Schreiber for a lot of years.
You know what I mentioned at the top of the show that my wife and I are doing a date night. It's been years since I've been to the Dipco. In fact, I know they went through a fire and a renovation, and they've been back for a handful of years now. I have not seen the new inside, so
you need to go.
I might. You might have convinced me there.
It would be a good choice, absolutely.
All right, and this can also be self-serving. Do you have a favorite event, an annual event that you go to in Lancaster?
Sure. Well, I mean, again, it would probably be the ducky race because I have to be honest and tell you, there are people, if I don't see them at any other point in the year, they make a point of coming up to me and saying hi. And we have kind of our super fans who turn out for the event. So this ducky race started in 1988. So obviously,
it's been going on that long.
And I have people that come up to me, by the way, that I didn't know before I started here, who want to show me that they have souvenir ducks, which if people would like to have them as part of when they buy tickets, they're entitled to so many souvenir ducks. They want to show them to me and all the different themes over 34 different years it will be this year. So that's always fun as well.
That's cool. So like there's people that have original 1988 ducks.
Huge, yes. And they treat them like gold. It's which we love. That's great that they have such a fondness for the event, which is really a fondness for Schreiber, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So last question, you have family or friends that you're bringing from out of town into Lancaster County, show about Lancaster County. What part of Lancaster do you like to impart on your friends and family? What do you like to highlight or talk about or show, or what makes Lancaster special?
Well, I can tell you personally from experience in my time here, I tell people the 2 best parts of Schreiber are the children who ever come the most dire of diagnosis. The second best part is what it brings out in people. We're in the middle of a capital campaign here, and I've had people come to me who I know in their lifetimes, they have made gifts which are likely their entire life savings, basically,
Wow.
that
Wow.
they've set aside that they want to donate to Schreiber. So seeing that, the generosity of this community demonstrated time and time again is incredible. And that's in every part of the county for sure. But I did just have a very good friend visit from Boston, and I took him into Lancaster City because, it's always fun to show off market. I try to tell him, of course, when we talk about Quincy Market in Boston, that really Quincy Market's a bunch of commercials. You can go into Quincy Market and get, Starbucks now. It's not really a farmer's market the way, Lancaster County Central Market is. I took him to the DeMuth Museum because he's a big art aficionado and collector himself. And we just walked the streets and enjoy, the scenery. I took him up to the rooftop of a couple different places downtown to enjoy lunch and dinner. And so, so we went all over Lancaster City.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, the giving heart of Lancaster County is one of the things that makes this community really, really special. Yep. So awesome. Well, I hope that giving spirit continues for you and Schreiber. The donations come in, the ducks all get sold. Just mention the event again, Sunday, the 11th, between 2 and 5, you have the event at the Lancaster Community Park, and the duck drop at 5 p.m.
Yes. Yeah. Lancaster County Central Park Festival, 2 to 5, duck drop at 5 o'clock.
And then, of course, your website's on the screen, schreiberpediatric.org. Definitely encourage people to learn more about Schreiber and the good work that you're doing there, and then give any way they can, whether that's financially or of their time. You stressed a few times the need for volunteers. So I hope we have some people. I hope we can send some people your way.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. Yep. I really appreciate it very much.
Yep. Thanks for being on, James. Sorry for keeping you a little long there, but we appreciate you sharing everything that Schreiber does.
Glad to do it. Thank you. Thanks again for putting me on so people can know more about Schreiber.
That's right. Awesome. Have a good rest of the day after dinner.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. See you. All right. Well, we're past the top of the hour. Look at us. I'm just going to wrap up the show now. We'll do the prize later here. Our fantastic podcast producer, Chris, from Cast Ahead. He's fantastic. He's going to spin the prize later there. We got a bunch of comments, had some super fans and some new people commenting. There's Steve. Steve is a fan of the show. His comment was that the Rubber Ducky Festival is awesome, and we share that sentiment. So thank you, Steve. Steve, you've perhaps won before, but that's okay. You can come in and grab one of these hydro flasks here with the Less Nor More Cuddle logo on it. Stop by and say hello and pick up your prize. That's it for today. Like I said, next week's guest is the Pet Pantry of Lancaster. Some great guests that we will talk to there who help our four-legged friends in the community. They're doing great work, with dogs and cats and pets of all kinds. So tune in for that next Monday, the 22nd at 2:00. And again, for Jeff and myself and Gardener's Mattress and more and the Lancaster Connects podcast, have a great rest of the afternoon. See you.